welcome everyone. Welcome to another Astral interview. And so I don't botch up any names here, I'm going to let Dave and Carla introduce themselves. So we'll start with each of them telling us a little bit about themselves, and we'll ask them how they want to do this. Who wants to go first?
Go ahead.
My name is Dr. David Bettenhausen. Recently retired from my active medical practice. I still work as a vice president of medical affairs part-time, which is 12 hours a week, which is perfect because it's a lovely way to go from working full-time to retirement. I grew up in a small town in Nebraska with a white picket fence and a life that was nearly perfect, raised Catholic.
Nice.
Finally bought a practice in Ohio where Carla was the office manager, which is where we met.
Carla?
I am Carla Bodni-kidd. It's actually Italian. It's Bodni, but so people can pronounce it, we just make it Americanized. My life is totally opposite from Dave's. I was raised in Boston, Massachusetts. I was the youngest of 6 girls, but also raised Catholic. So we have that in common. We did not come from the white picket fence scenario. My parents were always getting separated and back together and separated and back together. So I probably am not as squeaky clean as Dave, I'd just like to say.
She's squeaky either way.
No. I have, I've had lots of turbulence, and
Right.
we've got a really good start.
Wonderful. So is there anything that either of you want to share with me about your lives prior to your meeting that would be significant to the subject matter we're going to go into, which happens to be, by the way, guys, reincarnation. So either of you? Is there anything significant?
I have an interesting story.
Please.
That it fills the part of the white picket fence. My grandmother graduated at 16 in Nebraska at a time where you could get a teaching job if you were 16 and graduated. Okay. She went to work in a one-room schoolhouse. She used to tell me the story. Okay. And the story was, she was in a one-room schoolhouse. She knew the storm was coming. She knew there was going to be a tornado. She tore her skirt, tied the little kids together, and ran to the root cellar. And the first miracle she experienced was when the tornado flattened the one-room schoolhouse, but all of the children lived.
Wow. Oh, wow. Okay. And we're speaking about this story as they are about to experience a storm where they are right now. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Correct. Miracle 2.
Okay.
Is my grandfather moved to the area and opened the first gas station ever in that community.
Okay.
Back at that time, because there were very few cars, so he did everything in the station.
Right.
Bookkeeping, pumped the gas, worked on cars, did the whole thing. He married my grandmother, which meant she had to quit working because you could not be married and a teacher at that time.
Okay.
Just interesting how the history of the world is.
Yeah.
Because of course they knew that if you were married, you were having sex, and children could not be exposed to that.
Not like we're animals or anything.
So one night, my grandfather was still at the station. He was working on the books. My grandmother was tired. She went to bed. She was also Catholic and always raised that way. She was so tired, she went to bed and didn't say the rosary.
Okay. And so I say your grandmother religiously said the rosary every night.
Every night. That night she did not.
Okay.
Suddenly she felt the end of the bed shake, and she looked up, and there was a golden woman who told her she should get up and say the rosary. She knelt beside her bed.
Okay.
Started to say the rosary, and the gas station that my grandfather was working at exploded.
Oh my God.
He was thrown across the street through the general store window.
Oh my God.
And the building burnt to the ground.
Yet he survived.
He survived. He got up, he dusted the glass off with almost no injury.
Wow.
By the time they stopped the fire and he got back to their little home, Grandma said, maybe you weren't meant to do this.
Right.
And so they moved back to Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay.
And he walked the streets of Lincoln, Nebraska, looking for a job to help take care of his new wife.
Right.
And he walked into the University of Nebraska looking for a janitor's job. And he was in the admissions office, and they offered him a housekeeping job in the admissions office and also enrolled him in school the same day
Wow.
because it was covered if you worked there.
If you work there. Oh yeah.
If you worked there, he could go as a student. So he started to take classes.
Mhm.
He took classes for 2 years, applied to law school, graduated 3 years later from law school. And when he finally was done, he was a Supreme Court justice in the state of Nebraska.
Oh my God, from a gas station owner to a Supreme Court judge.
Yeah.
Grandma
How
says-
amazing is life, eh?
Yes. And Grandma said, that's not the miracle, Dave. The miracle is if he hadn't survived, you would have never been born.
Right. Miracle number 3.
Miracle number 3.
So
Hadn't
again,
survived, he would have never been born. Huh.
yes. So if you put that, it goes a little farther. If that hadn't happened, I'd have never met Carla.
Yeah.
Our experience would have never happened.
Right.
We wouldn't be sharing with you right now.
Right. Of course. Oh my God. Isn't that just amazing? Carla, do you have a story
Oh.
of
Well, Dave's squeaky clean family, you know, the sister's the accountant, he's the doctor, mom and dad, you know, he's the principal, she's the secretary at the school, you
right.
know, the nice family.
Right.
Mine, on the other hand, you know, we lived around the corner from where the Boston Strangler killed somebody. Yeah, that was our life in Boston. But during the time that my parents were always getting together, breaking up, getting together, but never quite got divorced because they were from the good Catholic family, there came a summer when my parents were together. And we weren't wealthy, we didn't own a car. So one particular time, Daddy rented 2 cabs and we all went to Revere Beach. Now, Revere Beach was not just sand and water, it actually
Where
had
is
an
it?
amusement. It's in Massachusetts.
Okay.
In Boston.
In
Yes,
Boston
and
still.
right outside Boston,
Okay.
actually in Revere.
Okay.
So anybody that if you mention Revere Beach to, they know that Revere Beach had a big amusement park with it.
Oh, neat.
To the side. And we were back there this summer and they're actually thinking about doing it again. They're trying to raise the money. So we were there for the day. And for whatever reason, when we got there, I did not have a bathing suit. I usually inherited one from one of my sisters because I'm the youngest. And my family went across the street and my parents really couldn't afford it, but they bought my first brand new 2-piece blue ruffled bathing suit.
Oh.
And I remembered that forever. It was etched in my mind. Now that's my sad story, but little did I know that that particular day, Dave's family had gone to
Oh
Boston
my God.
that summer because his father was using the GI Bill that he got while he was in the Korean War. And
Right.
he was taking additional schooling to become a principal. And it just so happened his master's was taking place in Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, wow. A lot of questions are rising just from that one little story now, of course.
So I got to tell you the rest of that part of that story.
Okay, please.
Okay. Because I didn't know this story until
Until after, of course.
much later. And so what happened in 1962,
Okay.
again, my dad went to graduate school. We lived in Nebraska. He drove us in this little blue sedan. And I didn't remember this because I was only 3.
Right.
Okay.
I was much older. I was 4.
So one day, because we had been so stressed in the office, Carla finally got me to start to meditate in the office.
Okay.
And because it was terrible, we had electronic medical records started. I became a very
He's a
grouchy,
crabby old man.
grouchy
Crabby.
old doctor. And we started to meditate.
Most
and it was-
doctors I find are just.
No, they're not.
Well, he's normally a cross between Fred Flintstone and Yogi Bear.
Oh,
This really was not the norm for
not a
him.
normal Dave.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
So we were meditating in the office for stress relief before patients came.
Okay.
And one day I said, Carla, I just had the strangest memory. I was driving across the country with my father in a blue sedan. And we went, and I was standing in the front seat. And my little sister was in my mom's arms because they didn't have seatbelt laws and all that back then. And we drove all the way to Boston. Carla goes, when were you in Boston? I said,
Huh.
it's the most interesting memory. I said, I remember a lot of things about married student housing and how all the houses were the same and all those things. I said, but I remember going to a beach.
Oh my God.
And I said, I went to a beach and I was yelling and screaming, and I'd never seen the ocean because I was from Nebraska. And I
Right.
was screaming and yelling. And I said, and suddenly this little girl ran out, yelled, be quiet. You're bothering my family. And she pushed me down and sat on my chest and gave me a kiss right on the forehead. And she jumped up and she looked at me and she put her hands on her hip, and she's wearing this little blue, two-piece blue bathing suit. And Carla said, it was me.
Oh.
We did not meet again for 36 years.
Oh my God. Yeah, I guess these kind of things happen in lives, right?
Synchronicities.
Yeah.
Nothing happens by accident.
So just, synchronicities are really amazing. Okay, so and on with the Carla and Dave story now. You guys met each other when you were 3 and 4, and you don't meet again until you work together. Is that correct?
Correct. 30s, I think it's really 36 years later.
You're
I
you're
bought
the
the practice.
doctor and she's the managing clerk, is it? Or
The office manager, and it's in Ohio.
oh, so you're in 2 different locations when you meet.
Yes, yes.
And you don't even okay, tell me the story now. How do you figure out who you each are and what happens? Who wants to go first?
Well, let's say this. I had been sitting in the living room with my then husband, and he got a phone call from a friend of his in Toledo that was also a physician. And he said, when are you retiring? And he said, I don't know. I don't have any plans, because I have this young man that is looking for a practice to purchase. And I think you'd really get along. Do you want to meet him? So
Right.
we made arrangements. He came down, and we were best friends from 1998 on.
Well, yeah.
It was a connection that was strange. We still have a picture from sitting outside on the deck right then, and we're both laughing hysterically at each other.
I love
We had
that
met-
word connection too, because it really relays what exactly is happening between two people in
Yes.
such a situation.
Mhm.
And we didn't have the shared memory of the beach in Boston till another 18 years later.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? And because she made you meditate, and all of a sudden the story comes to your mind. And of course, the universe is reminding you of that to remind you the preciousness of this relationship, of course.
Correct.
And meditation, I had meditated years before, but of course, my Catholic upbringing told me, oh, you shouldn't do that. You'll conjure something up. Well, we now know that that's all bunk.
Yeah.
Everybody should meditate. There's great benefits. And in Dave's case, I said,
In fact, there's certain sects of Catholics who meditate,
oh, yes.
even though the congregation doesn't.
That's right. Well, the congregation kind of does when they sit together and they quiet their minds.
Right.
If they allow it to happen, if they would just understand that is meditation, it doesn't have to be being led by the nose.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, again, I'll share some meditation experience because we kept meditating on a regular basis after this memory.
Okay, let me take you back though first, because I really want to know. Okay, you meet for your first time because you're brought together.
Yes.
And you have this amazing experience, enjoying yourself, laughing, and probably talking the whole night long because you were so connected in your spirit. What happens after that? Like, how do you decide to meet again, or what happens?
Okay.
Well, he bought the practice, so we began to work together. And, Dave's pretty happy-go-lucky. And then in 2011, the government implemented electronic medical records. And of course, we weren't young at that point. We had
Right.
computers, but we were doing everything with charts and, paper and pen.
Right.
And so we had to transition into these electronic medical records. And it was so stressful. Dave was working very long hours. I got shingles. I was under so much stress. And we finally got to the point where I said to Dave, you're not approachable. We need to do something. So either I'm calling a counselor or we're going to meditate. Of course, he chose meditation like most men would, because he didn't want anybody
Because nobody
examining his
wants to go
brain.
to counseling, right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
I kind of like counseling, but anyway, the very first day, the whole office was meditating with us, and we had a small
Wow.
office, and we chose to do it before patients came in. And all of us remarked on how difficult it is when you first start to meditate to shut off your mind. But like anything else, you just do it regularly, and you'll be, you'll get used
It'll
to
come
it.
around. Yes.
Yes, it becomes very nice, very peaceful, and the benefits are great.
Yeah.
So the second day, we all remarked on how we saw different colors.
Oh,
We were
wow.
all talking about the colors we saw. Well, we now know that those colors are our angels that are with us.
Right.
The third day, the girls said, we don't want to come in early. We'll do it at home. So Dave and I went ahead and we did our 35 minutes. We heard the
By
patients
yourselves?
coming in. Yes,
Yeah.
just us. We had calming music on, a candle lit. We were in the break room. We heard the patients coming in. And we got up, went into our adjoining offices, and Dave came up behind me and he said, Carla, I know you'll think I'm crazy, but I think I was just talking to your mother. And I said, what? Well, I believed him because, I had been to psychics and mediums and everything over the years.
Right.
Dave had not. But I'm thinking to myself, I was meditating too. What the heck is she coming to you for? Well, my
Right.
mother had died 18 years before that. Dave never met her.
Right.
So he said, well, she looked like you from side view. Your eyelashes are the same. And she was very jovial. She kept joking and laughing. And she showed me a shoe. And I said, a shoe? So I
Well,
went
what
to
did you look like?
well, the shoe meant something to me.
Okay.
So
It didn't to me,
he
but
didn't know what it
course.
meant.
Yeah.
So I went to the computer and I Googled ballroom dancing shoes. And,
Right.
60 or 70 pair popped up on the screen. And I said, which one? And he went over and he picked the exact shoe that my mother wore for her entire life. She was a ballroom dancer. She wore a short pump, open toed. She wore it for church, dress up, and to ballroom dance. And for him to get that out of all that, he had my attention, I knew.
Right. Yeah.
Then my sister, who also worked there at the time, went in the back and she brought up her wallet and she showed Dave a picture of our mother when she was like in her late 40s. And she turned it around and he got real emotional. And we said, what's the matter? And he said, it was very
That's the
spiritual, but
woman.
that's who I was talking to.
Oh,
So that's how it all began.
and
wow.
we kept meditating. And then while meditation, I had this memory of Revere Beach.
Okay.
That's
And I'm
what we
like,
just
and then we're
shared.
like,
Yeah.
okay, something's happening here.
Right.
The physician in me had to research all sorts of meditation issues because I didn't believe any of it. I was
Right. Right.
raised Catholic. Carla had stood up when I got married for me. She had been married to Tom. We both ended up without that relationship, but those are different stories.
Right.
But we continue to meditate, and I had a day and another woman appeared to me. Now, I already thought this was a weird experience that I'm having, but somebody else is talking to me. And I'm telling Carla, she says she's Isabella. She's been with me for 6,000 years. Through all of my lives. I'm pretty much very
Yeah.
confused.
Now you're like jaw dropping and trying to figure out what's going on.
What's going on, but we continued to meditate and we started to write everything down.
And
Okay. So
Isabella
wait.
told him-
Yeah.
I have to go back. Isabella came to who? Carla or Dave? You.
Me.
And while he's having these experiences of people talking to him, you're just having silence?
No, we were both getting all kinds of pictures and objects, things that didn't make any sense, but we just started writing everything down.
Oh, good one. Good for you.
And Isabella told him she was his spirit guide, and
Right.
she was always with him and would always be with him. Everybody has a spirit guide from the time they're born, and other guides come in to help you, but your spirit guide has never been human and will be with you forever and always. And so she started to fill in some of the blanks with the pictures and things, and explain to Dave that he had had 42 past lives and that I had 34 past lives. 29 of them were together.
Oh, wow. So, Dave,
Yes,
I have to ask you this for the sake of the audience. So
Sure.
when you go in and you meditate and you're experiencing someone come to you, what's it like? Is it like someone coming to you in the physical world, or is it different? Is it
it's completely different.
uh-huh.
I'm going to tell you that it is. I tell people that I hear Isabella, but it's a buzz feel.
Right.
If I have to say a word that I see her, but it's there's a veil that's not the same. Now it gets clearer and clearer. It's the picture that I now expect as Isabella.
Correct.
So it's very personal, but it's not something you could draw.
But it's a knowingness, right? It's
Correct.
it's her, and that feeling accompanies her presence, kind of thing. Is that correct to say?
Correct.
Mhm.
It is very much so.
Okay.
It's to the point where even Isabella will say over and over again, I've said this, what did I say to you? Because she has told me that sometimes we're very confused by what they say, or we don't understand the language because it's coming disjointed or in a sound that's not a normal sound. It's because you're not hearing them.
So what he's saying is
You feel
she
them.
always makes him confirm what he's hearing.
Right. Oh, wow. And thank you for that explanation. And so through my time interviewing people, it seems when there's a spirit around, a spirit communicates, there's always a form of confirmation or something that confirms to the other person that, this is this particular spirit.
Yes.
And it's inevitable that this happens. And in this case, in your case, it's the shoe that confirms to Carla
Mhm.
that you were talking to the mom.
Mhm.
And
Correct.
and so now, okay, so you now know that you've shared 29 past lives together
Mhm.
and have had so many other past lives. And what's your reaction to this whole reincarnation thing, considering you're both Catholic, first of all? Because
Mhm.
as
So-
I understand it, Catholics don't believe in reincarnation, correct?
Well, they used to.
If you
Okay,
look at Christian Catholic history, so if you're talking original Catholics, there is some part there we can discuss there
Yeah.
too.
so
But
the Jesuits would probably tell me that you believe in Catholicism or no? I mean, you believe in reincarnation or no?
They would say no.
They
the
would say
Jesuits would
Although-
say no.
Although, there are those nuns and priests out there that do. They just
Right.
don't admit it.
Right.
Just like half the population,
Yeah.
they know things, they've seen things, but they're afraid to admit it because of mainstream.
Yeah.
Right.
But in our case, we really, when she said we had 29 past lives together, we're like, okay, so this was all interesting, and we kept writing things down until
It's
one
interesting
day.
you didn't say, I'm closing this book, throwing it away because this person says we have 29 past lives together. We both need to go on meds. And, it's interesting that you didn't do that.
No, because I've always believed, I had read Dr. Brian Weiss's books.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's a psychiatrist. He was head of Mount Sinai Hospital, and he was Jewish, in fact, still is, didn't believe even in Jesus Christ.
Right.
He happened to be doing some hypnosis therapy on a couple of his clients to take them back to their early childhood to
Right.
see what was causing their present problems. And what happened was he took them back beyond this life to other lives.
Right.
And of course, he has been huge in the field and has written many books. Well, I had read those books, and all of those things made sense to me. that we are reincarnated, that we do have other lives. How else do we learn? We recycle everything else. Why not ourselves? It didn't make any sense to me that you live one life, and if you make an error, you're damned to hell. None of that made sense to me.
Right.
So
Right.
I was thirsty to get more and
To
more
hear more.
information.
Right.
Yes.
So let me
So-
ask you this, Carla. Wait, sorry, Dave.
Sure.
What was it that made you read the Brian Weiss books? Like being
I've always been a questioner.
drawn to like the metaphysical realm?
Yes, all of it. I've always been into astrology, despite
Okay.
what my family and friends said about me.
Right.
Because it's real, God created it, I did not.
Right.
I've always been interested in all of those things. And I had been to a medium before where my mother did come through and talk to me.
Oh, wow.
And they
Right.
were factual with the things that they were saying to me, and they had information that they couldn't possibly have obtained anywhere else.
Anywhere else.
So for me, it was like, cool, this is happening. I want to know everything about it. I've always been different. I never fit into the box that everybody else has. Dave was always trying to fit into the box because
Correct.
he was the good doctor, did everything he was supposed to.
It's a scientist.
I know.
Correct.
Well, he isn't really. He just went to school to be.
Yeah. So
He's a
so
mystic.
so you said all this
Yes.
scientist
ahead.
stuff. So you got to realize that when we were meditating, I went out and did every research I could on meditation. I went out and did research on reincarnation, and we found studies at the University of
Yeah.
Virginia Department of Perceptual Studies where they have 2,500 kids with
Yeah.
confirmed past life memories. I was reading all that stuff thinking, okay, there's stuff out here about this.
We're not crazy.
I'm not completely crazy.
Yeah, there's
However,
Yeah.
we wrote our first book after your experience. Our second book, Hell No Reincarnation, is really about researching the stuff, looking at religion, trying to figure out, did some of this get lost, trying to figure it all out. I got to tell you, the experience that changed it, where I
Please.
took it all very much seriously, was the day I was meditating and I was suddenly remembered standing in an alley. And I looked across the alley and Carla was standing there. Suddenly I saw two lights flash. I felt myself hit in the chest and I fell back and realized I'd been shot and I was dying. Now, when I say I saw Carla in the dark alley,
Let me just say this part.
yeah,
I was a lot younger, thinner, and
Right.
hotter, of course, because it wasn't me now.
Right.
she had her hair slicked back, a little gold band in a fringe skirt.
Yes.
And when I saw that, I was like, what does this mean?
Right.
The next time I meditated, I actually got more of that story, but before that data happened. And I was in a car, a little old, funny jalopy kind of thing that I couldn't understand because I had never seen anything like that. And I drove up with a friend of mine and parked in front of Ashland Auditorium in Chicago, Illinois. Now, I have to tell you, I never knew there was an Ashland Auditorium in Chicago, Illinois, but I drove up in front of it, got out of the car, went up all the steps, went to a makeshift church where a man named Angela was getting married. And I sat in the church and the wedding singer came out and she sang beautifully. And it was the woman I saw in the alley.
What?
Okay, the woman I saw in the alley. So I went up to her in the wedding reception and met her and asked her to go to breakfast. And the next day she did meet me for breakfast. And we walked along, we went to Marino's in Chicago for breakfast. And then we went on a walk along the Chicago coastline. And she talked to me and I had to come tell Carla the memory. I said, it was you, but it wasn't you. And we walked along the coast and you told me your name was Ruby Donaldson and that you were born in Bullock, Georgia, and that you moved to Chicago to be a dressmaker and a singer. I said, but that it turned out that you started to work for the man named Angela.
Right.
And we went to his wedding and the wedding was on January 10th, 1925.
That's my brother's birthday, by the way.
1925?
No, January 10th. No.
Okay.
And
January.
so I told Carla this memory.
Right.
And of course, I thought 1925 wasn't that long ago. Certainly I should be able to find something. So I got onto ancestry.com and I did indeed find Ruby Donaldson, born to James and Anna Donaldson, which Dave had given me those names, one of 11 children born in Bullock, Georgia. And then I found old newspapers from January the 10th, 1925, of the wedding of Angelo Genna to Lucille Spinola. And there was a picture of the wedding cake, which was over 10 feet tall. They had a makeshift church in Ashland Auditorium because there were over 3,000 mobsters there, and there wasn't a church that could accommodate all of them.
Oh, God.
Angelo Genna was the head mobster right before Al Capone. I didn't know this. He didn't know that. We don't know anything
No,
about
of course.
mobsters.
Yeah.
So I called Dave and I said, I have corroborating information. You're not crazy. Something is right here.
That's crazy.
So of course we kept meditating.
Your generations are mobsters?
Well, not my Italian heritage here.
No, not your
Back then,
Italian.
yeah.
And so what happens even later on is I keep getting more of the story. And one day I came running in to Carla and I said, and here's some more that happened to Ruby and JJ.
And you told me to sit down.
I said, sit down.
What an amazing relationship you two have had, like all along then with this happening, eh?
And so I had her sit down and I started to go through some of the conversations that Ruby and JJ had. And as I was talking to Carla, it literally felt like I became JJ Wright. And I started to talk to her like she was Ruby. And it was me reliving that life story. And in the middle of telling her, she started to answer, having the same experience at the same time, knowing the answers that Ruby would have answered.
Wow.
Saying it as
It
Ruby.
was freaky. I flipped right into her and the two of us looked at each other like, whoa, those feelings are not supposed to be there.
Oh my
Here
God.
we are, best friends, having an emotional discussion with each other as somebody else.
Yeah.
So we ran out of the room and I didn't talk to him for the whole day.
Yes. Luckily, we had lots and lots of notes.
Yeah.
Right.
And we continued to meditate and journal until we found all 42 of my lives and all 34 of Carla's and the
Oh my
29 that we shared together. And we kept writing and journaling,
Oh my God.
having all the experiences that we could, writing everything down that we could, having Isabella tell us lessons about what happened in all those lives.
And why we return time after time after time. It's not just, to
So
have fun.
Isabella being your guardian angel,
Spirit guide.
spirit guide,
Yep.
Some people call it guardian angel. You could say that.
spirit guide, guardian angel. I'll say spirit guide. Which she's the only one that's been helping you with all this all along?
No,
No, there's been more than one. Okay.
yes. We
I
have,
was feeling that, I was sensing that. I didn't know how to ask the question.
Well, we have our own angels.
Yeah.
And of course, our first book is called The Gift of Past Lives with Mother, Isabella, God, and Elizabeth, because
Elizabeth.
that's how we met them.
Right.
We met Mother first, I should say he did, then Isabella, his spirit guide. And then there came a day, because being a questioning person, I asked everything you could possibly come up with, because being raised Catholic, I wanted to know, what have I done right? What have I done wrong? What am I in trouble for? What am I supposed to do? Why are we here? We asked all of those things. And there came a day when I said to Dave,
Mom and Isabella couldn't answer all the questions. And so,
well, they did. They kept answering, we kept journaling, but every day when we sat down to meditate, I'd have more questions. So one day I just said, well, who's God? And Dave got real emotional. I mean, so emotional. And we're like, what?
and at that moment, I heard God say, I am. And love was more than I could stand. The feeling was incredible. I can only assume it's the same thing that people who have their near-death experiences have. That kind of full love engulfing you. We went on, we do have a quote from God in one of the books that we wrote.
The third book.
God does not come regularly and talk.
But God talks to a lot of people, and so does Jesus.
Yeah.
And those who say it stopped a long time ago, it's wrong. If you're open and you believe and you listen, they're there to help you, just like the spirit guides. But my angel is Estes, and Estes actually helps us write also. He comes through when the books were written, because we're on the 5th one right now. The books were written, we write, and after we reread it, I mean, it's a process, you know, editing and everything. And sometimes we look at each other and we go, do you remember writing that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, how did it all come out?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I hear you. I hear you. Okay. So the first book is essentially about your conversations with Mom, Isabella, and
God and Elizabeth,
God.
plus 20 of our past lives. And included with that, because Isabella told us, you're not just here for fun. There's a reason you're here. She said, I'll break it down and make it simple. Most people know what the 10 commandments are, but
Right.
I will make it simple for you and tell you that they are actually 5 simple rules to live by. If you live a life without conceit, jealousy, selfishness, and unforgiveness, and do everything out of love and compassion, then you will be off the karmic wheel. So in book 1, after each of our past life stories that we share, we tell you what we did, why we returned, because we didn't get the concept. We kept coming back. And, you know, it's been over 6,000 years. It's a slow process. Isabella says it really isn't up there. You know, she assures us we're really not the only slow learners. Everybody else is too.
That 6,000 years is probably
Yeah.
probably like the lowest number of years or something.
Yeah, but we feel real bad for them. I mean, we've failed
course,
them over and
yeah.
over, right?
you know, they keep watching, trying to help us get through life after life, and we just keep screwing up and coming back.
Yeah, but we don't want to call it screw up. We
No.
want to call
What
it
is it? What is
positive
it?
and
A day of
negative.
God is 1,000 of man, or something like that.
Yeah,
Correct. So
yes.
you know, it's just a blip of time, and Isabella has said that before.
Right.
She says, when you're talking about eternity, a life of 70 years means nothing.
Right.
And since we come back,
Except to us, of course.
I know.
Yes.
And especially, and everything's relevant. What you're going through right now, if you can think of it as karma is not punishment. Karma is potential to learn and grow.
Right.
And so the relationship that you have with your parents and what's going on right now, and the same thing with me, my mother had a brain tumor and I took care of her for over a year. I wouldn't trade that for anything, even though at times you think, who am I? And what am I supposed to be doing? And will this ever end? And all of those things. I learned so much from it.
Yeah.
You're learning so much, but we come back with these people and we take turns the role we're playing. Right now, you're their daughter, but in a past life, you were probably their mother or their sister or their love interest or whatever the case may be. I've been Dave's mother twice. Sometimes it feels like now. No,
Hey.
I've been his schoolmate, his sister,
Right.
all of, you know, over and over, because
What's with all these incestuous relationships?
I know. I mean, in the beginning, we were like, ooh.
That's
And,
right,
but
yeah.
then you get past that, you realize, you know, that's juvenile for us to think that,
Yeah, I hear
because
you.
love is love,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes, there may be many manifestations of love, but the love itself is real regardless of the role.
Mhm.
Right.
And
Of
so it
course,
starts-
right? And
Right.
it gives us an opportunity to experience the role, the loving role, as those different beings and those different roles, right?
Yes,
Correct.
because how else can you learn? We have a series of lives where we were Viking and then ended up becoming Scottish, and then Scottish fighting the English, and then English fighting the Vikings.
Oh my
And
God.
so when you think you're right about something, then
Yeah.
you might come back in the next life. You've been right on that side, you've been right on this side, so you believe, but you're not. So
Yeah.
with compassion, you learn everything is relevant. Everything is gray. It's not all black and white, and you have to see that in everybody.
And you've been blessed with this life of learning or relearning all your lifetimes of lessons.
Absolutely, positively,
Yeah,
because
it's
we
been
know now.
Yeah.
We know what's important. We know that each and every choice, you need to think, is this choice actually loving?
Right.
Because if it's conceited and it's about you, it's no good. If it's vain, it's conceited.
Right.
If it's what's best for me, it's conceited.
Right.
All of those things, because none of us are meant to be by ourselves.
Right.
Life is really about interaction between two people, three people, a group,
Right.
the society, everybody. We're really here because it's all a shared experience. And if we live on both sides of all the issues, we soon realize that we have to live both sides or we don't really understand it. You
Right.
can never understand or you can never judge anyone if you've never been in their shoes.
Yeah, of
And,
course.
and when you return with your soul family, you return with them for one of two reasons, either as a family mate to help each other or as a karmic mate to heal each other.
Right.
So everybody that comes into your life, it's in one form or the other, and you don't know what they were to you in the past life, even if they drive you crazy and you want to strangle them. You know, I mean, you just have to stop. And there's every day where Dave doesn't put the lid on something and I want to go, Dave, but I don't always. But every day, you're learning. You
Yeah.
have to stop yourself and say, oh, am I being conceited? Am I being jealous? Am I
Right.
being selfish? Am I
Yeah,
forgiving?
I always ask the question, what would love do in this situation?
Exactly.
Yes.
It's hard. We're not perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I want to go back now to the lifetimes.
Mhm.
I mean, there's 29 of them. It's not like we can go through all of them in this one interview. But give me a scenario of the different types of lifetimes, maybe the archetypes or something like that, of the roles you played with each other. And not
Okay.
the roles as in mom, dad, or whatever, because I imagine there's basically three roles: mom, dad, and child, because mom, dad, and God as the child are the roles we're trying to learn, right?
Correct. I would say yes, man,
Yeah.
woman, child.
Yeah.
And I say that, but
Mother God, father God, and child God is basically
Yeah.
what we're trying to
Yeah.
master.
correct. And so the roles come, I guess.
First of all, let's say that our third book is called The Manual.
Okay.
In the manual, we break down the way God makes each one of us with our astrological sign, our archetype, our
Right.
trait,
Right.
and elementals, all of those things that make us who we are. Now, with all of those things, God puts those on us to draw us to each other. So
Right.
Dave and I, just like a lot of other soul families, are drawn through their astrological sign, through their trait, through their archetype, and through their elementals, because there's something to be gained from each other and being together.
Right. Yeah. So you always find in whatever time period you are in your life, you're drawn to somebody. And oftentimes, I mean, sometimes the other being could be repelled from you, or they are drawn to you too. And different situations determine what that is and why. And I've learned in my life now to just be the observer first.
Good for you.
Just observe what's going on, because it's not like you're in control anyways for the most part. So just observe and just go along with it, because people come into your lives back into your lives that you least expect will.
Mhm.
And situations have changed to almost bring them back into your life, but you don't know why, but you think it's one thing and you try and do one thing, but that doesn't work. So then I've just learned to just, okay, observe.
Yes.
Observe is a good answer, even though inactivity can still bring karma, because the reality is it's really not what happens to you that matters. It's
Right.
how you react to what happens to you.
Right.
So you're put in a situation, if you react in a loving way, you're not going to develop a reason to come back from that interaction.
Right.
However, if you react very negatively,
Right.
you've now a connection with them that can't go away until it's addressed.
Until it's addressed. Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's really weird. Like even with my parents, like it's a tug of war kind of relationship at times. But I mean, I love my parents with all my heart and all my soul and always will. But there's still that, that tug of war. Like,
Yes.
all of a sudden I'm 16 years old and I have to do chores and make sure my clothes
Yes.
are in in the closet and all
Yes.
those things, you know, and I get at like am I 16-year-old again or a 12-year-old again or a 4-year-old again at times. So
Mhm.
it is that dynamics back in my life for whatever reason, and it makes me wonder, like, what happened? Like, why am I back into this child, mom and dad? But then I'm realizing I'm not the mom I mean, I'm not the child anymore. I'm the mom. Like,
Mhm.
I'm the one that's saying, no, you can't eat that. You have to eat this. And
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
right.
Yes. Totally.
So
So
all of those things occur in lots of our past lives. I mean, there's even this is interesting, there's a past life where we're love interests and I die going to war. In my next life, I'm born to Carla.
wow.
But I'm still in the same life.
And she's
Right.
still in the same life.
But you're still in the same life
I'm in
and
the
Yes.
same
born
life.
to you.
Yes.
It was actually in Greece on one of the islands,
Right.
and he was fighting in a war, and we had one night together, and the next day he was actually killed in battle, and I found out after that I was pregnant. So by the time I did have my child, it was him all over again.
Wow.
So in that case, we have from love interest to child
Mhm.
in the same life.
And the same,
almost.
like the same lifetime.
Yeah.
And in our very last life, it's really interesting, um, the karma that's related here. We were brother and
So when you
sister.
say very last life, you mean the one just previous to this?
Yes.
This one.
Right before
Okay.
this one, we were brother and sister. My name was Katie. His name was Johnny. I was 6. He was 4. I don't know why I'm always the older woman, but anyway.
It's
Um,
a couple years is not much.
yeah. Well, anyway, it was Christmas Eve, and we were living in Chicago. We were with our mother. She was downstairs wrapping presents. Our father was away at war. He was a World War II fighter pilot. He was overseas fighting. And we were playing on our 3rd-story balcony, and we fell to our deaths. We both broke our necks and died right then. And our mother, of course, was devastated, but our father came home. They did make it. They had a really rough time because both of their kids were killed. And 3 years later, they had another child, and they named the child Carla.
Very interesting, isn't it?
So the karma there, and actually, I will tell you that they are related to Ruby and JJ, our Chicago story.
Right.
And Ruby owned a ring, a red ruby ring that's on the cover of our first book, The Gift of Past Lives. That
I
ring
gotta
has,
read these books now. I'm just so into this interview. I've got to
well,
read
I'm
your books.
telling you, there's a little vignette in the back of that book. It's the story of the red ruby crystal, how it was found, how it was split, and it changed hands 34 times. How many lives has Carla had? 34.
29 or 34. Yeah.
34.
Yeah.
But that red ruby crystal was Ruby Donaldson's in Chicago. She wore it on her finger, and it now is on the married ring finger of our great 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 granddaughter who lives in Chicago, and her name is Rosie.
In this lifetime.
In this lifetime,
this
but we are
lifetime.
not allowed to
You're not
contact
to
them.
communicate.
Nope.
No, because it could change, again,
Right. Right. It
how
could
could-
change.
how could we be her great 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 grandparents, but we stand there in front of her?
Yeah.
Right.
And if she's not open to the discussion.
Mhm.
Right. Oh my God.
I know. But the karma there, of course, was not ours. We were children.
Yeah.
The karma there was not our mother's. The karma belonged to our father in that life because he was in war and he was killing innocent people. Because remember,
Right.
when you go to war, you're not just killing soldiers,
Right.
you're killing hairdressers and doctors and children. And yes, you're doing it because you're commanded to, but you still need to know what's going on there. So he lost his family right then and there, and he had to see what it felt like. So he
I
came
hear it.
back and he learned a valuable lesson. So the karma is not always just yours. Like people say, my baby died, what did I do wrong? Well, that lesson is not necessarily yours.
Right.
That lesson could be the doctors, the nurses, your next door neighbor.
Right.
And that child was never meant to come to you. That child came to you to help somebody else. So don't beat yourself up and think, what did I do wrong? It's not
Right.
always about you.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, and I hear why you told me that story too. Thank you, Lord.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, okay, um, I want to get away from the detailed aspects of your reincarnations now and go to concepts. Like, for example, um, in between lives, do you have memories of what happens in between lives? Like,
Yes.
you've died
Yes.
now and you're in spirit. What's happening up there in spirit while before you come back down?
Well, Dave's done it many times.
Yeah, I've experienced my death so many times, and the
In your
transition.
meditation.
Yeah, and the
One
transition.
more question. Carla,
Sure.
he's been having all these meditative experiences of his past lives, and you're having them too, you said, but are they
Mine
different
are
in form?
different.
Yeah,
Mine are different. Mine are not like his. Dave can shut his brain off and totally go back to any life and live it. And I have taped him doing it. And it's
right,
not past life regression. This is just him doing it. I've also regressed him, and he's very easy to put under, but he can do that with a snap. With me, I get bits and pieces. And I'll tell you that, for instance, when we do podcasts, because we've done like 85 now,
yeah,
the host, many times I will look at them and I know them from a past life, because I have this gift where I can see in their eyes if I know them.
right,
And this will get a little complicated right now, but I'll tell you that in the manual, the third book, we
yeah,
talk about how when God created all of us, he created us in what we refer to as pods,
okay,
3 souls with 1 spirit guide.
okay,
And some people get confused and they say twin flame, soul sister, all these other things, when
right,
it's called a pod sister. So they may be here with you, they may step in for you for somebody else. My one pod sister is here, and I have met her. Actually, we hired her, and while she worked for us, all the patients would say, is Brandy your daughter? No.
right,
And they'd say to Brandy, is Carla your mother? Because you're very similar and you act very similar.
right,
So I will tell you that we met this really nice girl who is from Philadelphia, and she is your pod sister. And as soon as I saw you, I knew that you're Leslie's pod sister. I
wow,
could see it immediately, and I can't
I
wait to
can
tell
now.
her.
As soon as you said that, I just.
Yeah,
sort
I
of-
knew it immediately.
Yes.
So that's kind of my gift.
okay,
And
okay.
but
Well,
I get it.
I'd love to meet my pod sister.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I get bits and pieces of the story.
Okay.
And we have a new next door neighbor, and I said to Dave, well, I saw her. She must be a queen of some sort because I see her in all gold. Now I haven't found her yet, but they show me these little snippets of things, and then I get the story. And
Okay.
I'll say to Dave, ask Isabella if it's this. And she'll go, why do you doubt yourself, Carly? Yes.
Yes.
It's all in there.
Yes.
Our spirit guides are really, they're a hoot.
Yeah, I
I'm
know
telling you.
they put a lot of onus on us to be able to have faith in what we're experiencing.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So you were talking about concepts. So
Yes.
life between lives, or
Life
intermission,
between lives.
or we call it the period of atonement.
Mhm.
And I don't mean that anything bad, but that has potentially for some a religious thing, and I don't mean it to
Connotation,
be
yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
But during that intermission period, there is a period of time when you're literally so disembodied that you've lost your senses, that you're literally partially confused.
Okay.
Just for a couple days.
For there's usually 3 days people have the transition time where they really don't know, because they don't know, because most of the communication is mental or telepathic, if you want to call it that. Because once you've lost your physical body, you no longer have the sense of smell, taste, talk, all of those
Right.
things.
Okay.
But you're not alone. Somebody's with you.
Somebody's with you, and you will feel the comfort of people with you, and feel the comfort of people that you've known in the past.
Mhm.
Right.
And people will say, well, how come Carla wasn't in all of your lives? Well, sometimes you sort of get off schedule.
If I die late and he's born early, sometimes it doesn't work.
And it takes a few cycles till people average out. And
Mhm.
Plus,
you
it's
see
probably a
is-
different kind of learning and a new kind of learning and
It
and
is.
like, I mean, it's like, you go on a trip and you come back and tell Carla about your trip now versus,
Yeah,
her being
yes.
with you, right?
exactly.
So each and every time that I have passed away since about 700 or 800 BC, like the dates in there. I know that sounds weird when you
It
talk,
was a Mayan life.
It feels like, oh my God.
so ever since that death, I have experienced this hand of a small black girl reach down and take my hand.
Okay.
And I start to go at speeds that I cannot explain.
Okay.
And every time that I've been in that state, it says, I suddenly felt like I was flying behind golden wings, holding the hand of a small child.
Okay.
The black
And this
hand of a
happens
small child.
this happens every single time.
Every
You're
single time that I
transitioning
have
from one
died,
life to another that you can recall.
that I can recall. And I'm traveling through what I say is space, time, and eternity.
Okay.
And the lights go past me such that all I see is the lights going by
Okay.
till I reach a place, and all I know is I feel that it's warm and loving and I'm not alone. And so slowly I'm aware. And as I'm aware, people that I know come up to me and speak for me. And I know that sounds strange because there's a whole group of people who are there,
Right.
and we call them council.
Right.
And this group of council is there, and people come and speak for me. And then I experience past lives. And they go through a very detailed of the current life that I just died from,
Right.
showing me not only my experience, how my experience affects someone else.
Right.
So an example is in a past life where I may have been at war, and many men have war memories because it's a long history of humanity, where I killed someone. I might remember the killing of that person, shooting them or stabbing them or whatever. I then feel the loss of the family,
Right.
and the loss of that the children had, and the loss of a community, and the loss of all comes rushing through me. So it's not the person I killed that I hurt so much for, because that was a battle, and it's
Right.
kill or be killed. But I killed everything else connected to that person
Right.
and how they hurt.
Right.
And you're not getting scolded.
Yeah.
You're not getting yelled at.
You're getting the experience.
Mhm.
It's to teach you, when you took that life, this is what happened.
Right.
It wasn't just this life, it's all the lives you affected.
Right. Wow.
Or, like, yeah, and I've also got to watch my own father's past life review. And
So
this one
why
is,
was that? Why'd you get to watch your own father's past life review? Because you're in different time periods, or well, I guess.
Because
yes,
we were writing book one, and we have a chapter in there about judgment and about atonement. And
Right.
Isabella wanted Dave to experience and understand how karma works.
Right.
and so as I watched his past life review and then reviews of other past lives, we saw how it started to match up with all of my past lives, because there were times in there where he was in the same lives that I
That you
was
were in.
before.
Right.
So we have a life in Bermuda, and in the life in Bermuda, my father was a slave trader bringing men from Africa.
Okay.
And as he brought men over in the boat, chained in the bottom of his boat, he was selling them in Bermuda, and they were going from Bermuda to the United States. In the next life, now I was of dark skin and living in Bermuda at the time.
Yeah, we were both slaves during that time.
Okay.
Okay, I wasn't from Africa, but I was from Bermuda and an indentured servant,
Mhm.
maybe slightly a different class, but
To the
they
English.
all threw us together,
Yeah.
sort of. And in the next life, that I saw my father was J.J. Wright's father
In Chicago.
in Chicago.
Your
he had-
father was J.J. Wright's father, and J.J. Wright and Ruby
Was Ruby's love
the-
interest.
Right.
Yep.
Got it. I'm getting it.
Okay, so in that life, I saw my father, who had lost his wife in childbirth with me,
Right.
try to raise me and read me out of a book. And so I saw him reading and trying to raise a kid as a single father, even though he had some questionable interactions with the mob, which is how he got me a job as a banker, as a
Right.
junior banker, that met Angelo, which ended up being some issues. But my father did lose his wife and his daughter in that life.
And his son.
And his son, yeah, which,
So he felt what it was like to lose his wife through childbirth. His
Right.
daughter was abducted and murdered, and his son was shot in the alley. So his father then learned what it felt like to have a family taken away.
much
Right.
like he had done as a slave trader, when he broke families up and divided and chained them and brought them to the Americas.
Hmm.
In this life, as dad is watching his review, he sees all these things. And then you have to realize my father, who raised me in this white picket fenced world that was beautiful, very great parents. They were together all the time. They did everything that made it possible for me to get from where I was to through medical school, the whole works. A high school teacher, high school principal. At 52 was diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Okay.
By the end of his life, he was chained in a wheelchair, barely able to speak, because he had to feel what it was like to be chained,
Right.
much like he had chained those in the bottom of his boat.
Right.
However, the lesson is, even though he could hardly speak, and even though finally in his 80s, his face became the mask face that some people with Parkinson's get, where they barely express emotion, he would sit there and he would tell me jokes. And then he would try to laugh, but his laugh was like,
Right.
because it's all the laugh he could possibly do.
Oh,
He would fall asleep or actually go into his almost a Parkinson's-like coma in the middle of the football game, and he'd want to watch the football game, and he'd say, "Give me my pills," and then he would go and he'd black out into nothing.
mhm.
And 40 minutes later, the pills would start to work, and he'd wake up and say, "Did Nebraska score?" He wanted to know what was happening in the game because he missed 40 minutes.
Right.
Again, he missed parts of his
So
life,
amazing, right?
but he stayed connected to people and
Right.
continued to make loving choices, even when the Parkinson's was starting to make him
Right.
unable.
And in a way, also enjoying his pleasures of life that he enjoyed, like the game and all,
Mhm.
while
Right.
he was getting his lesson of this lifetime, I guess.
Correct.
So is it true then that every negative thing that happens to you, it's as a result of a past life thing that happened to you? Like, okay, so you cheated on somebody, so someone's going to cheat on you, or
It doesn't have to
killed
be so
somebody, so
literal.
you-
It's
doesn't
Not
get-
that literal.
it's
it's
not that literal.
right,
There is a
You-
lesson that you
You
need
do
to,
reap what you sow, but it's not necessarily that way.
right,
yes, because everybody's learning a lesson and all the lessons have to
right. And
match.
you may be playing your role for someone else to have learned something or something then.
Correct.
Okay.
And the other thing, and I just have to say this because it's
Please.
very important. You know, in most religious circles, people start to become atheists or doubters or whatever, all because they have some sort of experience where they want to hate or be angry with God.
Right,
Creator, Tao, source, I don't care what term people use, but they get angry with God because why does bad things happen to good people?
right,
You need to know that when you overcome any adversity, it is actually a scientific fact that you get stronger,
right,
you get better,
right.
you improve.
Yeah.
So when we start to blame every negative thing that happens on karma and God, you're not realizing that every negative thing that happens makes you a better person,
Right,
makes you stronger, makes
Right.
you more compassionate, makes you that higher level person someday. And there is no higher level
No,
if there is no God.
right. I believe that too. Because ultimately it's all one, right? The child and the father is one, so that the communion of the two can only occur in these interactions that we're in.
Correct.
So in our life in Chicago, when I was Ruby Donaldson, Angelo, my boss, beat me, raped me, gave me to other men, abused me in every which way he could. So what did I do in this life? He was my first husband. Talk about stupid, right? But in this life, he was also abusive in this life. He was mean, but I walked away from him. I got away from him.
So you learned your lesson.
Yeah, that was Ruby. I wasn't smart, but in this life, I got away from him. And if I saw him in the grocery store today, we'd say hi and we'd chit chat.
Right.
It would be okay.
Right.
So I accomplished something.
You accomplished something. Not only did you get away, but you kept the relation,
Yeah,
amicable, so that you don't have any more karma with this individual.
exactly.
Exactly.
You got it.
And
And-
you've now learned this lesson, so you can do that too.
Yes,
Thanks
I'd
to
love to
this
tell
beautiful
him, but he'd think I was
relationship.
bonkers. Yeah,
But those are all the real points that when you start,
Yeah.
it might be that your lesson is, if you're going through a divorce, maybe you do have to sacrifice something. Maybe you do have to stay. Maybe it is better for the children for this short period of time.
Right.
That's a choice.
So
or
how do
maybe
you know?
you were the abuser.
Or the choice may be that if you're living with an actual abuser, you should walk out, take your children and run, because it's actually conceded to stay in an abusive relationship and make them responsible to take care of you because you are responsible for you.
Right. Right. So the right decision to make is the one that's the most loving for everyone involved in that moment,
Yes.
Correct.
right?
That's exactly the answer.
Right.
And if you want a little hint into what you've done negatively, again, astrology is related to our angel and our karma. So the astrology, there's 12 astrological signs, and they're broken down into 4 sets of 3. And they're all attached to either selfishness, jealousy, conceit, or unforgiveness. For instance, Dave and I'm an Aquarian and he's a Pisces. And
That's funny. I'm Aquarius, by the way.
I am not
It doesn't
surprised.
surprise
I'm
me
not
either.
surprised. So
And the one I was married to was a Pisces.
So you could have
So
18th of February.
no, 13th of February.
Okay, so I'm the 18th. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm right there next to Pisces. But if you well, there is a color chart in the manual that breaks it all
Right.
down.
Right.
So Aquarian, Pisces, and Aries fall under the yellow angel of Mariel's Legion. And that is for selfishness. So when Isabella told Dave and I that, we were like, what do you mean? We're not selfish. It's horrible. Well, in a past life, we were.
Right.
Because as Ruby and JJ, we didn't think about anybody else. We just wanted to be together. We weren't smart, and JJ ended up getting killed because of it. So in this life, God gave us the extra angel to keep us on track so that we would do what we're supposed to. That is such a nice gift.
Yeah.
And knowing what our personalities would be like, that's why we are the astrology sign that where we are. And by the way, in our very first life, I was an Aquarian and Dave was a Pisces.
Again, born on the cusp.
Yep.
Oh, we got to tell you this because I think it's really an interesting synchronicity. In Carla's first life, her name was Ariella.
Ah,
And in my first life, my name was David.
huh.
And when I went back and we researched it, we found that in the original Hebrew, Ariella and Carla are spelled exactly the same.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
Isn't it? Synchronicities.
That's synchronicity, of course. Yeah.
It's
Huh.
wild.
they're the same, because they don't have consonants. So it's the
Right.
same,
Right,
it's the same
right.
vowel. They only have consonants.
Yeah,
So
same in Arabic. There's no diacritical marks in the Arabic language either, except for to include the vowels.
correct,
Yeah, amazing.
correct.
So if you're drawn to certain places, you've probably had a life there.
Right,
If you're drawn to certain people, it could be karmically, or it could be because you need to help them.
right.
Just keep that in mind. My sister
Yeah,
was in the
absolutely.
grocery store one day, and she didn't realize that they didn't take checks, and they didn't take her check for whatever reason. And the girl behind her in line said, "I'll pay for it." And my sister said, "Well, let me write you a check." And she said, "No, I'm just going to pay it forward. Just remember that." So she told me the story in tears. So Dave asked Isabel, and she said, "Well, she was in a past life and you helped her." So you have to remember those things.
Those are the things that you
What
never.
about this concept of you choose your own parents or you choose your own soul family? Is there truth to that?
Okay, I'm going to tell you, the answer is no.
Okay.
Now, I don't want to say the answer is completely no, because that's probably not true. But
the way I saw it was it's a domino effect. So it's chosen once and then it just dominoes.
it'll keep
changing.
going. Yes, it becomes a chain because you're connected to
Because you're
them.
a soul family.
Right.
But I'd like to ask people this question. In this big planning stage that everybody's talking about, there are few choices that are really yours, because the story, your next story, and who you're going to run into and the things you have to fix have already been decided based on what you did before. So
Okay.
there's a little bit of predestination occurring here.
Right.
The next part of the question is, if you choose your father and mother, don't you think they would have the right to choose you or not?
Right.
Okay, so what happens if you choose your parents and they don't choose you? Who
Right.
wins?
Who
Right.
makes the decision?
Somebody makes the
That's
decision.
beautiful.
So the
That's a
decision,
good way to explain it. Absolutely. Right.
so
Has
somebody has to make that decision. So you don't get to make all the decisions.
right.
Because if you did, we would all choose to be healthy billionaires traveling all the time, just having fun. Who would choose to,
Be a
have
murderer.
Parkinson's disease? Yeah,
Yeah.
who would do that? But we have all been saints and sinners.
Right.
And that's another part of the lessons. When we went back and we looked at all of our lives, we found us as saints, sinners, kings, queens, paupers, black, white,
Slaves.
slaves, slave owners.
I poisoned him in our fourth life.
And I still like her.
Yeah. And
But that's
our-
because you know who she is. But what if
yeah, our son in that life was that coerced me into poisoning him, was my first boyfriend, my true love in this life. Oh, yeah, and he hasn't changed any yet.
that's so
But
funny.
yeah, but when you start to learn those little synchronicities, sometimes you start to see patterns that we all are still trapped in that we can't get out of.
Okay, I have a question for you. Have you met anyone else, or have you gone searching for anyone else who's been in a situation like yours, who met each other and knows that they have their, what their past lives are? You
Yes.
have.
Yeah.
If you get onto reincarnation sites, there's a lot of people that are aware. They've either done it spontaneously, like we
Yeah.
have through meditation, or they've had past life regression. The thing with past life regression is your spirit guides are not going to let you see something unless it's something that's going to help you.
Right.
And there's a lot of people, there's so many people that say, I was Marilyn Monroe. No, you weren't all Marilyn Monroe. There was one Marilyn Monroe, but what could have happened is that during your lifetime between lives, when you were being taught, that they gave you Marilyn Monroe's life as an example to say, look what happened to her.
Right.
So then that imprints on you and you have that memory.
Or you might have lived during Marilyn's time and
Yeah,
you were
and you knew
obsessed
her.
with her.
Right.
at
That
some
doesn't
time, yeah.
mean you were her. There's
Right.
only one of all of us, but Yes,
Yeah, I always wondered that because so many people say I was Mary Magdalene. I'm like, how can everybody have been Mary Magdalene, right?
they haven't,
They haven't.
because Mary's not here.
Other than maybe we're all Mary Magdalene because we're all interconnected spiritually
Yes,
in
yes,
source, and that we get the knowledge of what happened as Mary Magdalene for a learning lesson, maybe.
yeah,
Correct. There may be some part to that that you just said is true. And the other thing that this is, I'll try to do it as a visual, the experience that I have had when you're preparing to return to this world. It's like this incredible swirling lighted grid. And when I tell you, it looks like an infinity sign and it's going around and around and around. And in the center is the birth canal or that tunnel of
or the
light.
tunnel, right?
And you
Yeah.
and you either come down from that or back up through that. And you're going to go back up to your pod to wait for your atonement. And when you're waiting to come back in your next life, all of that is somehow connected. Every one of us is connected.
Yeah.
And groups of us that are connected close all return at the same time because we all get close to that same canal as it's coming, and it's open for that time period.
Wait a second, you need to tell her. When he says pod, that's where we were born and that's where we reside while we're waiting to reincarnate.
Okay.
That's where we all go back to while we wait to reincarnate.
So
And
when we're
Dave,
waiting, we're basically in a meditative state, just
we're learning,
reviewing.
learning.
we're
or-
learning, and
We're-
we're watching.
We're watching what's going on. We're trying to experience it. We see maybe what we did and how it plays out to others
Right.
on Earth so that we can
Learn from
learn.
it.
And we also are in close contact, but still slightly separated from God.
Right.
And there's a reason for that,
That's
because
interesting.
except for the moment when you're greeted again and you feel God's completely with you, there's a part of you that's separated because there needs to be a yearning to return to home.
Right.
So when you're here, you do feel like you're an alien, you're different, you're not normal because this is not really home.
Right. And everybody feels that on some level. You know how some people say, well, I always felt separate or always felt different. But
Yes,
everybody
yes.
feels that. It's not just you, right? It's not just the one
Yeah.
saying that. Everyone feels that. Just everyone doesn't talk about it all the time.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So Dave's and my pod are right next to each other.
Right.
So go figure, we've been back in, 29 times
Or
together.
all the time. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
My sister I'm closest to, she's one away from me. My oldest sister that I'm not close to in the least.
So how did you learn where everyone's pods are? Was it like
Because-
one lifetime or you ask questions?
We ask
We
questions.
ask questions, plus Dave can actually go to the pod and see where they
Yeah,
reside.
it's a very strange experience
He
to
can draw a
watch this
picture.
visualization start to happen. And then the lights fill in and the people fill in and the spots come. And I could see this three-dimensional shape that starts to develop out of the
Right.
lives that we know.
If you think about when there's a picture and it's showing you the earth at night and you see how it's all lit up, that's how we kind of see it. I see it the same way. When I'm meditating, I go through the tunnel because that tunnel works two ways. That takes us into the spiritual world. It births us and it takes us back when we die. I actually see myself going through the tunnel and then I appear at the grid and you see all the little teeny tiny white lights and those are all the pods.
So do you think meditation was brought to your reality as a result of you having to know your past lives? Like for example, like you said, you regressed him. Did you learn hypnosis?
Yeah.
After
Because
we
of what
wrote
was
the
going
book.
on in
After we
both
wrote the
your
books,
lives?
we actually went and trained with Dr. Brian Weiss
In New
Right.
York at the Omega Institute with
Because-
his wife.
because
Yeah,
we wanted to see what
the world.
the world thought of all this and what they were doing. And we'd already
Yeah.
written 2 books,
Right.
but we wanted to go learn more.
Right.
And the part that was so good was that we sat in a room with 150 people from all across the country and shared our experiences for an entire week,
All over the world.
all over the world. Yes.
And the rest of the world is way more progressive than the United States on reincarnation. For instance, one girl that I regressed was from Chile. She was sent from the hospital. She's a social worker, and they sent her to learn past life regression to use it on end stage patients.
Well, yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
of
mean,
course.
they're so with it. We're so
Yeah.
behind because we're so afraid, and there's no reason to be afraid.
But also, I guess it's one experience of a type of lifetime we're supposed to have where we don't believe in reincarnation, I guess.
Or we have to be enlightened and
To
understand
understand,
why.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes, Shy Rose, the other thing that even if you don't exactly believe in reincarnation, just look at history.
Yeah.
Things are being repeated so many times. If we look, we see that oppression is a problem.
Yeah.
Totalitarianism is a problem.
Yeah.
And again, this is where part of this is in our second book.
Well,
but,
even pandemics, right? Pandemics are repeated over and over.
Oh,
again.
yes.
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 And so if you want to look at the Bible from an outside view and look at it, what do we see the story in there that becomes? We see the story of a people who make a promise with God to do certain things and they fail.
Right.
And what does God never sends them all to hell. What
No.
God does is says, okay, I'm going to send a new guy. I'm
Yeah.
going to make a covenant and we're going to do it again.
Yeah.
And what happens to the Jewish people? They fail.
Right.
What does God do? He sends another
Makes a new
prophet and he makes
covenant,
another
and a
one.
new prophet, and a new
And, and, and so pretty soon,
dispensation, and yeah.
you go through the covenants of Adam,
Abraham,
Abraham,
Moses,
Moses, King David,
Jesus,
Muhammad.
and so
and then you
on.
get to Jesus, and then you can continue the story if you want, because we have a whole group of Muslims who say they have another prophet.
Yeah. Well, I'm
And
Muslim.
so is it you're Islam?
Well, I was born Ismaili Muslim, so yes, I'm a Muslim. Yeah.
Yep. And so, but it's really a series of prophets that each
But like
one
me as a
says,
Muslim and another person as a Muslim may have different views. Like I believe, like our sect of Islam believes you should meditate, for example. Other sects of Islam believe you shouldn't.
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
And so, it's not enough to know that I'm a Muslim. What type of Muslim are you? And then not only that, what family did you grow up in? Because there's families that are Muslim that I know that believe in reincarnation, and there's those who don't believe in reincarnation.
And that is exactly what our fifth book is about. It's about meditation and the isms.
Right.
How we were raised to believe a certain way. We're geared to go a certain way because everybody's trying to control our thoughts and our thinking. And with meditation, you cannot do that. You actually learn who you are, what you think, and nobody can control that.
And when it comes to reincarnation and myself, it's been like ingrained in me, I think probably from birth, or I've known it or recognized it on another level.
Good.
Whereas the people I was with were always arguing with me. We don't believe in reincarnation. I go, well, I don't know whether we do or don't believe in reincarnation. From this text, it appears we do. From this text, it appears we like.
Yes.
Right.
I can't even argue with you because I don't want to argue with you because it doesn't
know
matter
what
what
you
you
know.
say. It's not going to
Yes.
change this,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. And if you go back to the original Hebrew, or Jewish people, and it's extended out because it only became part of the mystical stuff. So it shows up in Kabbalah, but it was an actual belief that they had to complete their 613 mitzvahs,
Right.
the rules. And if you didn't complete them all, even in Leviticus, which was written in Aramaic, it says the word kata, which is failed to reach your goal. So if you fail to reach your goal,
Right.
you have to come back until your goal is complete.
Right.
That's what that was.
Like reincarnation.
That's reincarnation. That's really
I
Jewish.
mean, that's
early.
the same in every moment, right? If you fail in this moment, you're going to try again. And
Yes.
if that's true for the moment, why isn't it true for the hour or the day or the
Yes.
months or the year or the lifetimes now?
Yes.
The lifetimes. It's all of the same. And then again, because we did as much research as I could on early Christian realities or religion issues, again, because I was Catholic, I found Origen of Alexander was really a Jewish descent, an early Christian theologian, lived in 200 AD. So if you want to put him in sort of a relevant time to Jesus,
Right.
he wrote 80% of the early church doctrine.
Right.
And he said, transmigration of the soul and the pre-existence of the soul is a fact.
Yeah.
Okay, now,
Aristotle mentions transmigration of the soul too, and so does, I think, Swedenborg. So Swedenborg
correct.
question.
And so these philosophers, these religious people said, this has to happen. This is part of our doctrine. Now, it didn't really match the early church control for the Romans. So 200 years after Origen dies, they have a church council, they have basically a trial, and they excommunicate him from the church because transmigration sort of means that the atoning death of Jesus has no meaning.
Right.
If you're going to come back, then Jesus didn't die for your sins.
Right.
That becomes the religious problem
That becomes a problem.
for Christianity,
Right.
Catholicism. And so, Jesus saved everybody.
Yeah.
So go back to an Old Testament.
But Jesus doesn't just exist in the day that he lived in whatever it was BC. He's existed in all of eternity. So he lived and died in all of eternity for us, right?
Correct. So that again, that becomes that kind of thought. It becomes that is he an example to be Christ-like?
Right.
That's different. That's an example of how to live a loving life.
Right.
And Isabella said that there are only two people that ever had just one life: Jesus and Mohammed.
Oh, wow.
That was something that sort of got me thinking.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And Mohammed is at everyone's atonement.
Right.
And Jesus is over all of the spirit guides.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Yeah.
people talk to Jesus. A lot of people see Jesus.
Yeah.
And a lot of people with near-death experiences say they saw Jesus. Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing that's interesting.
Yes.
When you start to look at patterns, and so I looked at the research done at the University of Virginia on kids who have intermission memories. And then we looked at people who had near-death experiences. And then I looked at the experiences that people did when we did a past life regression. And I looked at all of my personal experiences that happened. And I tried to line them up and see what happens. It doesn't matter what your religious background was. It doesn't matter who you are. Most people, the majority, report dying and seeing some sort of passing feeling, going through, tunnel, etc. Most of them report seeing beings of light, feelings of love, time passes differently, some sort of planning and past life review.
Didn't want to return.
Right.
And they all say they don't want to return because it's so beautiful there.
Right.
They don't get the choice. They have to come back. So don't think that you get to make the choice. All the choices aren't yours, because if your lessons aren't learned, you're coming back.
Yeah, like in Islam, as I understand it, Adam's lesson is repentance. Noah's repentance is obedience, and when you get the knowingness, you listen, you don't ignore it. And then sacrifice, that's Abraham, the lesson of sacrifice. And the Moses is the Ten Commandments, of course, the law. Jesus is love, and Muhammad is unity.
Nice.
Yeah.
And maybe that is the message all the way through.
Who knows?
All the way through.
It's a beautiful lesson, right?
Correct.
And when we go to the stories, maybe those lessons are there, of course, right? And
I think the stories are always in there. I don't. Again, I don't know that you need to be a biblical literalist to understand the lesson.
No, no,
You know,
you just have to feel.
It's a guide.
it's a guide, it's a
Yeah.
lesson.
Yeah,
It's the story of mankind trying to overcome adversity and realizing that we fail because we're not strong enough to overcome it until we learn enough lessons.
right. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so does there come a time when we've learned all the lessons and maybe this is our last life and we've gotten there, and what happens next?
So we do talk a little bit about that in the manual. Um, so this is a little complicated, but there is a time where people do complete their lives. And
I
Everyone.
hope so, because come
okay,
on.
Me too.
and Isabella says, luckily God
When
sort
we
of
get to go on
does
a
do this,
vacation.
sort of grades on a curve, because we're very imperfect, though we were all created perfect.
Right.
And we're all unique, none more, all special, none more special. Those
Right.
are the kind of lessons she tries to teach us. But there does become a time when you will either complete enough lessons here that you're done, or you're so close that there may be one more lesson you need to learn, and then you might be assigned the job to be someone's other human spirit guide.
Right.
And as a human spirit guide, there's something you need to learn.
Right.
And that you, if by interacting with your human people that you're trying to help, you'll learn that last lesson. I'm going to tell you
Mother.
the story of Carla's mother,
Mhm.
because this is the
Oh.
story we were told.
First, I should say that my father was absent. He had 6 daughters and he was absent. My mother could hardly stand it. She did everything. I mean, everything. He would say, keep the kids quiet, I'm trying to watch TV. Well, when you have little kids and they're all like 2 years apart, it's really difficult. And she did all the cooking, the cleaning. He did nothing. And
And they went through years and years of almost being
years
divorced
and
and back
years.
together and
They
divorced.
finally got divorced when I was 9.
Right.
But my mother left him when I was 18 months old. But this was after years of being married. She left him. She was in our life. She moved to an apartment. She called every day. She hired a lady to be with us. She was around.
Right. Go ahead. And
And
your dad was a single dad, right? Or in one life?
well, no, that way in one life he was a single
Yeah.
dad. Yeah. So anyway, Carla's mother finally moves to Michigan, does get the girls back. However, it was the life was torn apart for a long time.
And the second marriage wasn't any better than the first.
Yeah, and there was abusive issues, and it was horrible still. Her mother got a brain tumor, finally died. Got to the other side and got a job as our gatekeeper, and also to watch over pets that had passed. I know that sounds weird, but I'm going to tell you that.
We all have someone that takes care of our pets when they pass.
Animals don't have the same kind of soul. They pass, and
They're pure love.
and
They don't
they've
accumulate
served their
karma.
purpose. They don't have a karmic debt to return to.
Right.
But so Carla's mother took that role, and she
Right.
also worked as a gatekeeper when we started to meditate, to try to keep those people that might be coming back, because they still have some negative energy attached to them, away from you. If you want to call them a protective person, somebody who says, no, don't speak to that person because they're dangerous to you. They may
Okay.
have a message that's false. And so she took that job, and she was doing her job, and God came up and said, Cindy, you understand you've completed everything you need to know. And it's your time to be done. And we're going to let you pass from this level to the over the horizon, because you don't need to do this anymore.
We call heaven over the horizon.
Oh.
And she said, how can I leave now when my kids need me so much? And she said, that was the lesson you always needed to learn. You can still be their gatekeeper on the other side.
Oh,
So that's the story where sometimes you can learn that lesson, even if you've already passed. You may be given something related to the people left.
right.
In this life, Dave's mother had 2 miscarriages before she actually had Dave. I was the miscarriages. In my mother's life, my mother had 2 miscarriages before she had her first daughter, and
And
Dave was the
Dave
2
was her
miscarriages.
miscarriages.
Yes. So she considers him her boy.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we joke he's the only boy in the family. All the rest are girls.
So again, there's this levels of heaven. It's interesting because she told us 7 levels, and when you do studies of Hindu, they sort of have 7 levels. If you
Islam
look,
has 7 levels.
okay, and
Christianity
if
has
you,
7 levels.
yeah, if you look back at, oh, God, I lost me. Hindu has 7 levels.
Yeah.
Oh, Enoch had 7 levels. I mean, there's all this.
Buddhism has 7 levels. I
Yeah.
know.
And so it was very interesting because she's 7 levels, and so as you go up the levels, the 7th level becomes actually God, the one. Everybody joins, and whenever it gets to the point where everyone has passed and everyone has made it, every other level of heaven will collapse into
Right.
only one, the 7th level,
Right.
because everyone will be together and everybody will have figured their lesson.
And we do have a color chart in the manual on those 7 levels too.
Yeah.
So you know where, in Earth being number 1, where everybody is, where they reside, where their pets go, where their spirit guides are.
Right.
And they're all on different levels. So when you pass and you're doing a job, you're really on level 4. People go through their atonement and visit council on level 3. The pods, or that place where you wait to come back, is level 2.
Closest to Earth, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
And level 5 is what we call over the horizon, or where you've really gone, is the highest you're going to go.
You're finished.
There's another level, which is probably where some of the story of soulmates come from. We know the story of soulmates is really a Plato book that he made up.
Right.
Where a human used to have 4 arms, 4 legs, and 2 heads, and was split in half, and then
Yeah.
sent out on the world to find their other half.
Yeah.
It's a mythological
That's a myth.
story.
That's a myth. Yeah.
Correct.
But
So
there is like scriptural texts that say that there's one cell that gets split in 2, and we send it in 2 different directions, but who knows?
So yes. And so there's also, what we found out is the 6th level, which is God will choose 2 people, and not just any 2, multiple 2 couples that have fully emulated love. And it could be 2 men, 2 women. So I want to make sure that I'm not, nobody takes this wrong, but that fully represent all the male and female characteristics that are necessary to completeness.
In other words, they've had many lives together, and in all those lives, they emulated love to the fullest.
Right.
Then he will ask those people separately. You've seen all the experiences that you 2 have had together. Do you want to be bound as a soulmate forever, to serve as a beacon of love to help draw more people home?
Right.
That's what the 6th level is. It's about love and couples being joined together in a way that emulates energy and love that will help pull us forward and
So
pull us back
chances
to
are
home.
you 2 have done that.
We're hoping,
Who knows?
but I
It's over
don't.
6,000 years.
We've at least been connected over and over again.
It's time to graduate.
So whenever we graduate, we hope we've learned enough.
Right. Wow.
Isabel
I
says
love
there
you
are
guys.
people on that level.
I love you guys. I'm really enjoying this dialogue, and I want to keep asking you a gazillion questions, but sooner or later, I guess we have to call it a day and leave some mystery there for others to figure out, and they can do that by going to your website, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes, they can go to our website is thegiftofpastlives.com. Certainly links to our book, which are The Gift of Past Lives with Mother Isabella, God, and Elizabeth. Hell No, Reincarnation. The manual, because
Manual.
Carla said she never got the manual, so we finally wrote one. Our fourth book is called Her Huba and His Rose. Huba in Aramaic means dear to one's heart, or something close to that. Is that pretty close translation?
Over, yeah. Yeah.
It's a love story. It's not about us. It's a life that we lived, but it is the best love story ever.
Right.
And there's lots of details. I mean, it's just a good read for everybody.
So
I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to reading it, and I'm looking forward to having you guys back. And I normally end with, what's something you want to share with us that maybe I haven't asked you a question about, or I haven't even thought to ask you, or would never think to ask you. But really what I want to do this time is, can we make this part 1 and have a part 2 and maybe even a part 3?
absolutely.
And maybe go delve deeper into each of your publications and see exactly what's going on there. Because
Yeah,
I'd
sure.
love to.
Okay,
Absolutely.
certainly.
Wonderful.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you, Dave, and thank you, Carla. I don't know what to say. I really enjoyed this interaction. I feel like family, and
Yes,
we can do this
ditto.
again.
Yes.
Well, if it helps, your pod sister Leslie feels like family, but we've never been physically present with her either.
Mm-mm.
She doesn't
Someday.
live too far away, but we want to go
Yeah,
there.
I'm gonna pop in on her someday.
We'll have to do a Zoom together or something.
Yeah.
Yes,
And-
yes,
And I'd love to meet my pod sister for sure.
yes, definitely. And I'm gonna
Okay.
look for you in past lives.
Yeah, I'd love to know where I was, if I
Yeah.
was, or absolutely. Love you guys. And
Love you
so
too.
what I'll do is, I don't know if you even have my website information. I'll email all that to you.
Okay.
And I'll work on the edit and the video. Do you guys have any pictures of yourselves? Maybe you in the
Yes.
blue bikini.
I don't have that picture, but we reenacted it this summer.
We went to
cool.
Boston.
We went to Revere Beach. We're in clothes, but
Yeah.
our
But she
couple.
pushes me down and sat on my chest.
Yes, I did.
Something tells me you have a picture of that somewhere. So
Yes.
I do have that one. Yep. We'll send it. We'll email
okay,
it.
send me
Yeah.
pictures and I'll include some pictures into here and make it more dynamic and fun. And
Okay.
then I'll post it, and then you can share it and I can share it on my site and see
Okay.
where it goes. And I'll put your books on my website as well and link people to your site.
Thank you. There's lots of pictures on the giftofpastlives.com.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are some. Yeah, there are
Yeah,
pictures
there's
there
lot,
too.
but not the ones from Boston.
No.
I'll send you that one.
Yeah, send me some unique ones that aren't there so we can
Okay.
get some buzz going, and maybe
Yes.
we
Okay.
can do maybe we can do a Q&A Zoom together, and we can invite maybe 20 or 30 people and they can do a
Sure.
reincarnation.
Yes.
Q&A, and maybe
We've
we can
done panel type things. That's always fun.
yeah,
yeah.
maybe we can do a book sale or something. I don't know. Have some fun together.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
It was a
you.
pleasure, and I feel the pain,
Me too.
but it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I know.
And I'm just going to say you're very, very lucky to be there with your parents, that it's you.
Thank you. Thank
Yep.
you. I feel lucky too. I do.
Yeah.
I never thought it would be me. I thought it would be my brother, but
Mm-mm.
it's me, and lots had to change in my life for me to be here, including me losing my best friend. So,
That's what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling it.
but he's still around, and I still
Yes.
communicate with
Absolutely.
me, and he bugs me all the time. So,
I love it. Yeah, that is so sweet.
yeah.
Glad
Yeah,
you
I can tell-
understand that.
Yeah, I could tell you stories, and the thing is, he actually, through our 10, and we had 10 years together, and then we had maybe 4 or 5 years before that where we interacted with each other, but we weren't together 24/7. But in those years, he taught me what it would take to communicate with him right now, and I'm able
Oh,
to do that. Like everything in that 10 years was a gift of spirit communication, and now I can communicate with him because of that gift.
fantastic.
That
I love
is.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so good to have.
Yeah.
And you can, and it just helps to make everything better.
And I don't know about the twin flame or soulmate or whatever of it. We were the best of friends, and there's no relationship I enjoyed more than this relationship, even though it
You've
was short.
probably had many past lives together.
Yeah, definitely. Like the depth of the relationship like tears everything else apart.
There you
Yep.
go. Yep. You're so lucky again to have had that, because there's so many people that never have that.
I am so lucky, and I feel so blessed with all my relationship, all my friendships, and I feel blessed to have the family I have, and the fact that even this, like these interviews I do, and how I came into contact with the whole idea of doing interviews,
Yeah,
that's all a great blessing too, and I feel very fortunate for my life and all my life lessons.
good for you. Yay.
Perfect.
Yay, love you guys.
Love you and take care.
Yep.
Take care.
Have a
Bye
good
for
night.
now. We'll be in
Okay.
touch.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.